Chris squeezed Olivia tighter against his chest, almost as if he were afraid if he let her go, he might never get to hold her again. Olivia could tell that Chris's mind was in a dark place, but she didn't know the full extent of it. They pulled apart, and Olivia looked up at Chris with sympathy. He ran his thumb softly across her cheek. For a moment, the rest of the world faded away, and it felt like the two of them were in their own little universe. As they returned to their senses, they looked around the table and saw Morgana, Lena, and Millie standing up, ready to go. "Where are we all going next?" Olivia asked, unsure how she felt about continuing their shopping spree, knowing there was a dark cloud hanging over her fiancé. Sensing the change in mood, Millie glanced at Morgana and Lena. "Olivia, why don't you and Chris go hang out alone? Lena and I can help Morgana pick stuff out." Lena nodded. "Yes, perfect. You two can go on a date." Olivia looked at Morgana. "Is that okay with you?" Morgana smiled. "Of course it's okay with me. But for your safety..." "She's in good hands," Chris interjected. "I'll personally make sure she gets home perfectly safe." Morgana felt relieved. "All right, it's a plan." They all left the restaurant and met a driver Olivia had called. They put all of their shopping bags from their first part of the day into the car. "Take this directly to my house," Olivia instructed the driver. She turned to her friends. "Talk to you all later, have fun. We'll figure out when you can pick up your bags from my house." They all agreed, saying their goodbyes as they separated at an intersection. Once they were alone, Chris pulled Olivia toward him, and they found themselves face to face once more. He stopped, suddenly noticing her new sunglasses. He let out a light laugh. "What is it?" Olivia tilted her head. "What's so funny?" "It's nothing," Chris replied. "I was just thinking about the last time I took you to the airport and we ended up surrounded by reporters." Olivia nodded. "I remember one newspaper published a headline that said, 'Chairman Johnson, an unidentified gentleman caller.'" She lifted Chris's chin with her finger. "I guess I should stop hanging out with strange men." Chris laughed and abruptly lifted Olivia up. "Hey!" she yelped, and used one hand to catch her sunglasses from falling off her face as she laughed. "Put me down!" "Absolutely not," Chris rebutted. Olivia noticed passers-by giving them odd looks, but she was laughing too hard to care. "You called me a strange man just now. There's no telling what strange things I'll do," Chris warned, grinning ear to ear. "Put me down," she repeated, still through fits of giggles. "You're offending your superior. I'll have to write you up." "Offending my superior? You're not my superior." Chris reached out a hand and spanked Olivia's butt. Olivia gasped, her laughter immediately ceasing, and she stiffened. Chris felt the change in her body language and knew he had messed up. He put her down, feeling instantly embarrassed. "I didn't like that." Olivia straightened her sunglasses and looked away. Chris rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, I'm sorry, I got carried away. I shouldn't have done that." Olivia straightened her clothes. "I agree." "I'm sorry," Chris repeated. "What can I do?" Olivia spoke somewhat shyly. "You cannot do that in the future. No hitting my butt in public." Chris was so used to seeing Olivia's strength, her wisdom, her strategizing with ease in a dangerous crisis, but he had never seen her embarrassed like she was at that moment. He nodded, but had a glimmer of an indecent thought after hearing what she said. "What's that look on your face?" Olivia asked, bewildered. She couldn't believe he wasn't begging for her forgiveness. Chris tried to suppress his smile. "You said no hitting your butt in public. It sounds like you'd be open to it in private." "You're impossible," Olivia cried. She turned and walked in a different direction. "Wait, where are you going?" Chris followed her. "To wherever there is no you." Olivia snorted. Chris stepped in front of her path. "Olivia, I'm sorry. I promise that I will never spank you again." Olivia held his gaze for a beat, then nodded. Chris added with a smile. "In public." "Oh my God!" Olivia shouted, hurrying along the sidewalk again. Okay, I'm sorry. Come on, let's go shopping. Chris matched her stride, walking alongside her. What are you going to buy? Olivia crossed her arms. A pair of handcuffs so that you can keep your hands to yourself? Chris raised his eyebrows, shaking his head. Olivia, you are getting kinkier by the minute. Olivia threw up her hands, finally at such a loss she couldn't help but start laughing again. I guess you're right, because now I want to gag you too. I'll try everything once. Chris nodded. She rubbed her forehead. You're a middle school boy. I need you to focus. What are you shopping for today? Chris grinned. There's a summer class I think I'm going to take, but I need to pick up some books for it. I don't want to pass up the chance to visit a real bookstore. Do you want to come with me? Olivia tossed her hair. Okay, but I'm doing it for the bookstore, not for you. Deal. Chris hugged her, and she hugged him back. We're going to McNally Jackson in Williamsburg. What? She was stunned for a second. Why Williamsburg? It's so far away. Chris shrugged. Because I like it. It's the best. Olivia's shoulders sagged. Fine, but you really owe me one. She shook her head, muttering, Williamsburg. Chris took her hand as they began walking toward the subway. I don't know, you already owe me so much. This doesn't even make a dent. Olivia's mouth fell open. I owe you? What do I owe you? Chris pretended to think about it playfully. Let's see, an amazing wedding and an unforgettable honeymoon. After that, you owe me the honor of picking out a beautiful house together that we eventually make into a home. Then 2 or 3 children, blah blah blah, 3 to 5 grandkids, and at least 10 great-grandkids. He nodded with a serious face. I think that's about all we have time for before we die, but we can take our time in the next life too. Hearing Chris mention a next life, Olivia couldn't help but smirk. Even though she and Chris hadn't known each other in her previous life, she liked to think that they were fated to be together. I don't remember when I agreed to all of this, so I can't say that I owe you. Olivia laughed out loud. Well, feel free to double-check the math. We can resubmit the paperwork. Chris reached out and held Olivia's cheek. But if that all adds up and you still want me, I'll be with you forever. He kissed Olivia's forehead lightly. Olivia felt the softest part of her heart being touched deeply, gently, and warmly. Let's go. He pulled Olivia toward a subway station. Hopefully it's not getting too crowded yet. Follow me. Olivia tilted her head, curious. Is the L train to Brooklyn working again? Chris nodded. Yeah, it happened a couple of days ago. Let's go. Oh. Olivia accepted this and walked with him. She remembered that Williamsburg had become increasingly developed in her previous life. Remembering that, Olivia had recently asked Violet Cartwright to bid for land in East Williamsburg. It still was relatively up and coming, so she thought it might be good to go and take a look now. Chris glanced at Olivia and saw that she seemed to be thinking seriously about something. He smiled. He was used to that. The two of them walked down the subway stairs, disappearing. Across the street from the subway station, the passenger side window of a red Corvette slowly raised. Inside, Saibon Harney had a faint smile on her face, but there was no trace of joy in her eyes. Where are we going now? Her driver asked. Excuse me? Saibon looked sharply up at the driver, whose eyes widened in fear. You think it's all right to use that tone with me? I'm sorry. The driver hurriedly apologized. It was a slip of the tongue. He swallowed, his throat dry. Miss, where would you like to go next? Saibon shook her head and slowly sank back into her seat. She waved her hand at him dismissively. Back home. I'm tired. She had had a hard day, what with following Olivia around and trying to make it seem like a series of coincidences. Yes, miss. The driver responded politely, immediately starting the car. He began to drive, and Saibon noticed with satisfaction that a bead of sweat rolled down the back of his neck into his collar. She liked it when she made grown men nervous. The car came to a smooth stop in front of a beautiful, historic brownstone. The butler inside immediately ran out and opened the car door for Saibon. He lowered his head and said, Miss, Welcome back." "Thank you," Sayaban replied sweetly as she put her hand on his arm to stand. "Clean the car and find me another driver. This one was rude." Yes, miss," the butler stammered. He glanced at the driver's seat. The driver was hunched forward in his seat, the side of his face resting on the steering wheel. His eyes were wide open in fear, and a small golden cross attached to a gold chain pierced through his jugular. Blood oozed out around the cross, sliding down his neck, dripping onto the car floor. The butler looked away, blinking. He acted as though he had seen nothing at all and dutifully followed Sayaban into her brownstone. "You draw so much attention everywhere we go, Chris," Olivia muttered to him as she looked at all of the heads turning his way in the busy subway station. He was tall, strong, handsome, and had a sharp but understated fashion sense. It was like being out with a celebrity. "Huh?" Chris asked Olivia, oblivious. He had a trained sense for danger, but never took notice of the lustful glances of strangers. "I don't know if you should show your face in public." Olivia smiled with a hand on his jawline. "You're too handsome." The train arrived, blustering wind around them as he laughed in response. They squeezed onto the subway. He pulled the sunglasses off her head. "Here, I'll take these. Put my handsome face in incognito mode." She laughed, but then raised her eyebrows. "Wait, somehow you're pulling them off. It's making you even hotter. Give me those back." He did as she said and wrapped one arm around her, hugging her with the hand that wasn't holding the train's pole. She leaned her head lightly against his chest. He lowered his head and whispered into her ear, "Don't worry. I'll make sure you're the only one who gets to see me alone." Her face turned red. She had been joking, but with this assurance, she was now picturing the two of them alone. Her heart once again skipped a beat. She felt she would never get used to the effect that Chris Jones had on her. The further the train traveled, the more and more passengers got off. By the time they reached the third stop in Brooklyn, they were the only ones left in the train. Olivia looked at the map on the wall. "There are only 2 more stops to go. We'll be there soon." "Yep," Chris answered, the back of his fingers grazing her thigh. "Soon." The train pulled into another stop, and Olivia cozied up next to Chris, enjoying their time alone on the subway. But suddenly, something caught her eye. It was an electric sign broadcasting different advertisements, and there was one in particular that she was surprised to see. She stood to peer out the window, trying to get a better look at the ad. As she read it, her smile turned into a frown. "Is that an ad for Rose's Real Estate?" "It is," Chris replied from where he sat, the information unsurprising to him. Olivia snorted coldly. She had been so relaxed and enamored with Chris, but just the sign of Mark DeLillo's company name was enough to bring her anger up to a boil. She turned to Chris. "When did this ad start running?" "This week, I think," Chris answered her. Olivia narrowed her eyes. For all of Mark DeLillo's overconfidence and bluster, she could not afford to underestimate him. Once they finally arrived at their stop, Chris leaned toward Olivia. "You'd better put those sunglasses on. In my opinion, your face is way more eye-catching than mine." Olivia blushed and smiled. She had already been planning to put the sunglasses back on, but now she adjusted them with an exaggerated flourish for Chris's benefit. "All right, I'm all covered up. But what about you?" He held her hand as they walked out. "We'll talk about it later." Olivia raised a finger, speaking in a joking tone. "I'm just warning you, mister, if you walk around the city dressed like that, you're going to be attracting a certain kind of attention from the men and women on the street." Chris laughed. "Hey, what school do you go to again?" he asked Olivia. Olivia cocked her head, unsure where this was going. "Huh? I go to Marshall School, the #1 high school in all of New York City. I think you've heard of it." "Oh, is that right?" Chris nodded. "I thought you had transferred to some other high school for Hollywood types. You know, beauties, celebrities." She lightly punched his arm. "I'm just wearing sunglasses. Here, I'll take them off." Chris gasped. and walk around the New York City streets with a—" he lowered his voice, "a naked face?" She laughed, wrapping her arms around his arm. "Yeah, like some harlot." They climbed the steps out of the subway station up onto the streets of Williamsburg. Olivia looked around. She didn't typically spend much time in the area, and she was surprised to see how much it had changed since the last time she was here. "Where is this bookstore you wanted to go to?" He pulled her toward the opposite side of the street. "Right this way, follow me." Brooklyn was still in the process of being developed. Money was pouring in. Prices had not yet started skyrocketing, and original residents were beginning to get nervous about being displaced, if they hadn't been already. Many roads were blocked off for construction. Not far away, old buildings were fenced off in preparation for demolition. There was the smell and sound of construction in the air. Olivia looked at the addresses on the buildings as they walked. She soon realized that the piece of land she had asked Violet Cartwright to bid for was nearby. Chris gestured to a construction fence. This piece of land was almost bought by the Roses. "Oh, really?" Olivia frowned. "It's a good spot, close to a subway station." She was also thinking of her previous life when she had gone shopping in Brooklyn after it had been fully developed. She remembered this area being the hub of Williamsburg, with people flocking in from the city every weekend to enjoy the shops and entertainment. "I bet it'll be a good spot for more stores and businesses. Maybe a movie theater, a few restaurants, I don't know." Olivia sighed. If Mark DeLillo bought this piece of land, then the profit is going to be immense. Probably. "Yeah," Chris agreed. "Mark DeLillo's goal right now is to make a bunch of money on real estate in Brooklyn while the prices are still low enough." Chris paused, shaking his head. He looked at Olivia. "It should be all for you." "I understand." Olivia smiled at him. She mentally cursed Mark for having a rare good idea. "This is really good land," she sighed. "Oh, that's right," Chris replied. "The piece of land you were bidding for is right near here." He pointed toward another lot as they kept walking. "The land area is not big, it's divided into medium-sized lots. The price of land in real estate here is still pretty low for now, even though the area is up and coming. I think you'll get a good price on it." Olivia nodded, gazing at the land she might own. "I have to tell Violet Cartwright to follow up on my bid." "You haven't received any news or updates on it?" Chris asked. "Not much," Olivia replied. "I did hear that some crazy tycoon spent a ton of money and bought 60% of all the land up for development. I heard it was somewhere in the area of $5 billion. A big smile spread across Chris's face. More accurately, it was $4.6 billion. "How do you know?" Olivia slowed her walk to a stop and looked at Chris. "Wait a minute." Olivia narrowed her eyes and suddenly remembered that in her previous life, when Chris Jones' name shocked everyone in the New York City business world, it was because of the huge new developments he led in Brooklyn. "Chris, it's you? You're the crazy tycoon?" "Crazy tycoon?" He reached out and touched the tip of Olivia's nose. "What are we, playing Monopoly?" Olivia was quite shocked. "Damn, it really is you." Because of her past life, she knew the future value of the land Chris just bought and could not believe what an excellent decision he had just made. "What's there to be surprised about?" Chris shrugged. "New York is my home. I want to feel safe here like it's my territory. How can I not have my own land?" She nodded, still in awe. "That's right, it makes sense." She sighed heavily. The magnitude of the wealth he had just spent and was going to make was still blowing her mind. "What are you going to do from here?" she asked. "So there's a limit to the amount of land one person or entity can buy." Chris looked at Olivia. "With private property and other auctions, I have reached the limit. I am not allowed to buy any more property in the area." Olivia raised her eyebrows. "So you want me to help? Grow your territory even more?" "You know it." He stretched out his hand to her. "Are you interested in using your name to help me buy more land?" She tilted her head. "Are you looking for my name or the name of the park company?" "Why?" Chris narrowed his eyes, trying to guess. She smiled, enjoying being a step ahead. "If it's just my name, everything will be fine. But if it's the name of the park company that you want, you don't ask me if I'm interested. You sell me on the benefits." Chris couldn't help but laugh. "You know, with the two of us together, we're going to be unstoppable." "All right, let's get down to business," Chris declared seriously as he put an arm around Olivia's shoulders. "What benefits is the park company interested in?" Olivia rolled her eyes. She knew Chris was teasing her now, but she actually thought teaming up to buy real estate was a good idea. For now, however, she would play along. "Oh, unfortunately, I can't commit to anything without seeing what's on the table and conducting a full negotiation, Mr. Jones." Chris raised his eyebrows. "Oh, I got you to use your chairman voice." She laughed. "But for real, ask Sven to put everything into writing. Send over the documents. Then I will discuss it with Violet and Jeff and send you an official answer later." All right. Chris squeezed her shoulder. He knew that the park company was a publicly traded company and that all economic transactions and financial decisions were very important. Olivia was accountable as a chairman to follow all the rules. Buying land and spending this much money was among the more high-stakes, complicated maneuvers she could try in order to increase revenue. "Is that what you really wanted to do here?" Olivia asked. "Get me to see all this property so you could convince me to go in on a deal with you?" "Olivia Johnson, what kind of guy do you think I am?" Chris chuckled. "You'll have to see what happens next to find out what else I wanted to do here." He raised an eyebrow mysteriously and led Olivia into an alleyway. They crossed through to another street and found themselves facing a huge commercial office building that was still under construction. Even though it was not finished yet, Olivia could tell that the building would be spectacular and imposing when it was done being built. She looked up and frowned. "Is this one yours?" "No." He shook his head. "This piece of land is not mine." "Oh no." She wrinkled her nose. "Is this Mark DeLillo's?" Chris nodded. "Yes, it is." Olivia sneered. "He's being pretty ambitious, isn't he? No wonder the Rose Company didn't cause any more trouble for us after the last back and forth. I thought he was still waiting and planning, but he must have given up on the whole angle for the time being. He thought of a different way up." Chris kicked at a rock by his feet. "In the beginning, he bought a bunch of land and didn't really do anything with it. It was only recently that he started building on it." Olivia narrowed her eyes. "I bet he started after Beatrix Cooper came back." "Ah, there it is." Chris nodded, impressed. "It makes sense that someone gave him guidance. He didn't think of that on his own." Olivia looked at the unfinished building in front of her with a serious expression on her face. The last thing she wanted to do was to see Mark and Beatrix successfully work together and put Mark far ahead of Olivia in their competition. If Mark DeLillo had one helpful attribute, it was that he was brave. In order to get his revenge, he would do anything. And Beatrix Cooper always had a plan. Olivia thought that among the people she had gone head-to-head with before, Beatrix's wisdom and shrewdness could possibly be considered the best. Mark and Beatrix had previously been competing and playing tricks on one another, neither one of them willing to submit to the other. And Olivia was happy to sit and reap the benefits while the two fought each other like cat and mouse. But now it seemed as though Mark and Beatrix had come to some kind of agreement and decided to join forces. That was a big problem for Olivia. She had to carefully protect and defend what was hers while constantly watching her back. Together, Beatrix Cooper and Mark DeLillo were strong opponents that she had to be wary of. The rebellion of the 7 big families was only the beginning. Because of Millie's existence and the increasingly likely possibility that she could be the missing Crawford, it was only a matter of time before the 4 big ancient families came looking for her. And now this Saibon Harmy had arrived out of nowhere. It was almost too much to handle. Olivia took a deep breath. She felt that from then on, she wouldn't have so many days like this, free to shop with her friends and spend time with Chris. She had work to do. She had to get back on track and remember why she was here. To get revenge on those who had wronged her. Initially, Olivia thought she could live a balanced life, enjoying her newfound friends while she worked towards her goals. But as she reflected on the enemies and tricky situations that surrounded her at every turn, it seemed she wouldn't have a chance to catch her breath at all. Chris watched Olivia, knowing she was deep in thought as she knitted her eyebrows up at Mark DeLillo's ambitious, gargantuan real estate project. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. Olivia side-eyed him suspiciously. "So you brought me to Williamsburg today for this random, very specific bookstore. Are you really here to buy books?" she asked. He laughed and smiled apologetically. "Well, there is a McNally Johnson in Soho, so we technically didn't need to come all the way out here. But I do actually need to buy those books." Olivia helplessly shook her head and took Chris's hand. "Let's go, then." Olivia realizes that Chris must have noticed Mark DeLillo getting his operations up and running in Williamsburg and wanted to find an opportunity to show her. She was sure that Chris knew if he told her outright, she would take Violet Cartwright to see the site instead. So he made up an excuse so she would have to go with him. Olivia thought the roundabout way Chris did things sometimes was so silly, but she appreciated the sentiment behind his actions. "Come on." Olivia jerked her head back the way they came. "Let's get your books and get back." "Okay," he agreed, grabbing her hand and leaning down to kiss her on the top of her head. Despite the looming monument of Mark DeLillo standing over the two of them, Olivia felt warm, happy, and safe. Olivia enjoyed browsing in the interesting old independent bookstore while Chris found the books he needed for his summer class. She wanted to soak in the smell, pick up a new novel, and curl up in an armchair. After he paid and the two of them left the bookstore, Chris asked where she wanted to go. Olivia felt her stomach approaching hunger and suggested they find somewhere back in the city to eat dinner. As they got off the subway back in Olivia's neighborhood, a cunning look flashed across Olivia's eyes. "Tell me about Saibon Harney's background. It seems like it's something I will need to know." Chris nodded, his face grim. "I wish you weren't right, but I think you are." He turned to her dead serious. "She's scary, Olivia. Only people who know her from a young age can really understand her. If any of us are careless, we might really suffer a huge loss. The kind of loss you can't make up for." Olivia hated the look on his face, one she wasn't used to seeing. He was wounded and worried at the thought of losing Olivia to Saibon. They found a relatively quiet restaurant with a quiet patio on a tree-lined street. They ordered food and the waiter poured wine for both of them. Olivia watched Chris take a sip, not wanting to push him but desperate to hear any more details about Saibon. Sensing Olivia's curiosity, Chris's expression became serious. He drew his fingertip along the rim of his wineglass. "Saibon Harney is a psychopath." Olivia raised her eyebrows. "Can you elaborate?" "I mean literally." Chris shook his head. "Most people who are mentally ill are not dangerous. But Saibon is not like most people. She is violent, controlling, and straight-up evil." Olivia didn't understand. Well, doesn't the mental illness part of it mean she should be in treatment? And if she has a history of violence, it could be involuntary. "Yes," Chris nodded. "She was in an institution here in the U.S. 2 years ago, she was transferred to another institution in Europe. Then, a few days ago, she suddenly appeared back here." Olivia nodded, trying to piece together the puzzle. Chris looked off into the distance, watching the trees sway in the breeze. She is an extreme person, and she hates to live in the shadows. "What do you mean by that?" Olivia asked. Chris turned his glass on the table. The Harney family does not acknowledge Saibon's existence to the public. They forced her into the shadows out of embarrassment and shame. Olivia absorbed this. Because she is a psychopath? Chris took a breath. Because she is too strong. She's a very strong person and very talented. As long as she wants to do something, there is nothing that can stop her. She's been like this since she was young. Olivia began to see why Saibon was so dangerous. So she's a violent person who hasn't had to deal with any legal consequences or restrictions, and she possesses extraordinary talent? Got it. Sounds like a piece of cake. Chris's mouth became a tight line. She's been involved in multiple assassination groups. Her intellect is at a genius level. She once calculated that she wouldn't live past 15 years old. She was sure of it, as if it were simply a fact and not a prediction. 15? Olivia was stunned. But isn't she 17 now? Exactly. She seems to think she somehow cheated death. Chris nodded and frowned. When she came to find me this time, she said something odd. She said, "If you go against the heavens, you will surely suffer the wrath of hell." If you go against the heavens, you will suffer the wrath of hell. What does that mean? Olivia asked. She was about to take a sip from her glass, but paused at Chris's strange quote from Sayaban. I guess you did also say she was crazy. She could have been just rambling nonsense. Perhaps, Chris considered. He did not doubt that Sayaban could just be messing with them. Olivia kept up the smile on her face, but her left hand resting on her leg under the table trembled with fear. She mindfully smoothed her skirt to calm down and took a deep breath. What is it? Chris asked, detecting Olivia's restlessness. I'm just hungry, that's all. Olivia pursed her lips. I'm sure your food will be hot soon. Chris patted Olivia's hand comfortingly. The touch from Chris was comforting to Olivia, but not for the reasons he thought. Olivia's hand gradually stopped shaking. She picked up her glass again to take a sip as her thoughts reeled. Going against the heavens. Sayaban's words echoed in Olivia's head. What if Sayaban's prediction that she would die by age 15 was true? What if she already lived that version of her life once, and then woke up to find herself younger with the chance to redo important moments in her life to change the future, exactly like I did? Olivia smiled across the table at Chris, trying not to give away the anxiety she was currently feeling. Could that be the reason I can't read Sayaban's thoughts? Because we both cheated death? And if that's all true, then is what Sayaban said about going against the heavens true? How could what happened to me be going against the heavens? I didn't ask for this to happen, it just happened to me, and I've tried to use my powers to make things right. Olivia's mind sped out of control, and she couldn't seem to stop it. But if Sayaban is right, does that mean I'll suffer the wrath of hell too? Olivia's gaze was far away as she considered the weight of her decisions and the potential consequences. She settled on the choice she committed to and felt more resolute than ever. If changing my fate and protecting everyone I care about defies heaven's wishes, then I'll just have to overcome the fallout, whatever it is. I'm not backing down now. I'll take on whatever hell throws at me and I will win, because I'm fighting for good. Chris glanced at Olivia but looked away to avoid embarrassing her. He could tell that she was deep in thought, preoccupied with something. He didn't often see her look anything other than calm and collected, always 5 steps ahead, so the difference was noticeable. Chris had enough experience with Olivia by that point to know he should trust her to handle whatever it is she was working out in her mind. If she wanted him to know, she would tell him when it was the right time. Just then their waiter brought their food and set it on the table. Bon appetit, he said, smiling at the young couple, oblivious to the weight that hung over Chris and Olivia at that moment. Snapping out of her train of thought, Olivia immediately picked up a bite of food with her fork and offered it to Chris. Here, try this. Chris opened his mouth and accepted the bite of food. It was indeed very tasty. It's so good, right? Olivia smiled. Have another one. Chris accepted another bite that Olivia fed to him. It is really good, but you should eat it, aren't you hungry? I'm just making sure it isn't poison first, Olivia joked. Chris's chewing immediately stopped and he did not laugh. He knew she was joking, but soon after discussing very real threats, he did not find it funny. Sorry, too dark of a joke. Olivia shrugged sheepishly. She knew how much Chris worried about her, and she immediately felt guilty for being insensitive. You would joke about something like that. Chris shook his head. I'm used to you by now. He teased, trying to lighten the mood a bit. Is there anything else I should know about Sayaban? Olivia asked as she began to eat her own food. Mostly what I already told you. I just cannot stress enough that she might be the trickiest, most conniving, manipulative person I've ever met. And that's saying a lot. Chris said gravely. Even her smile is dangerously deceptive. You have to be extremely careful. Right, Olivia nodded. She thought back to how disarming Saibon's smile had seemed when they first met. She came off as so innocent and sincere. It was so easy to feel relaxed around her. So easy that Olivia had ignored the tiny nagging suspicion in the back of her mind. The fact that she had been fooled so well was deeply troubling to Olivia. She never made mistakes like that. Beatrix made me feel like I finally had a worthy adversary. But everything Chris says about Saibon makes Beatrix seem like a walk in the park. That's really it, though, Chris said. You just need to know she's very, very dangerous. Understood. Olivia nodded. She thought for a moment, then asked Chris, There's one thing I don't get. If everyone knows that Saibon Harney is so dangerous, why has no one tried to get rid of her already? Seems like a huge liability just letting her walk around. It's not that no one has tried. Trust me, many have tried. None have been successful. Chris said seriously. And now, no one would dare try again. Not even you? Olivia did not understand. She didn't think Chris was afraid of anything. Supposedly, Saibon Harney was born with a curse. Chris explained hesitantly. Since the Dragon and Phoenix clans both put a lot of stock in mysticism, no one has wanted to risk spreading the curse. Well, what is the curse? Olivia asked. Chris might not believe in curses, but he had no idea what was possible in this world. I honestly don't know exactly, but I've heard it could possibly affect the 7 big families and the 4 ancient families. Only the oldest leaders of each of the families know the details of the curse. Chris said, My grandfather knows, but my father doesn't. And my grandfather won't tell any of us. I see. Olivia nodded. Chris leaned back in his seat, his eyes looking off into the middle distance as memories flooded his mind. Saibon has signs of being troubled and dangerous ever since she was young. The Harney family didn't pay that much attention to her, and they ignored what they considered small things. Making dark threats, setting small fires, killing wild garden animals. But then something happened that they couldn't ignore. Chris swallowed. When Saibon was young, she had a second cousin who bullied her. A lot. It wasn't nice, but none of the adults seemed to notice. God, if he was still alive, he'd only be 4 or 5 years older than me now. Chris mused. He's dead? What happened to him? Olivia asked. Saibon was about 7, I think. Chris continued. That cousin and his family came to stay with the Harneys. He immediately started in on his bullying, and something in Saibon just snapped. On the second day of their visit, the cousin, along with his entire family, were all found in their beds, murdered by poison. That's when everyone realized something was really wrong with Saibon. All of them? Olivia gasped. She poisoned them all when she was just a young child? I mean, I empathize with anyone who was bullied, especially when it was their own family who did the bullying. Olivia couldn't help but think of Millie and Derek Brown after hearing that story. But that reaction at such a young age is unhinged. She took out an entire branch of the family, people who didn't even do anything to her. Olivia continued. Right, that's when I think she started spiraling into evil. Chris said, What kid thinks about poisoning anyone, much less that many people at once? Chris took a sip of his wine and then continued. Later, the Carpenter family was implicated in the crime. The Carpenter family, isn't that... Olivia looked at Chris, surprised. Isn't that your mom's family? It is. Chris nodded, his eyes solemn. After the poisoning, the Harney family wanted to get rid of Saibon as fast as possible. So Saibon fled to our house. My mom was always very kind and took her in. She saw a young, scared child and couldn't believe Saibon was capable of such a thing. When the Harney family came looking for her, Saibon refused to leave. The rest of the Jones family didn't want to get involved in what they saw as a private Harney family matter. They insisted that she hand Saibon Harney over to them. So what happened? Olivia asked on the edge of her seat. Saibon still refused to leave. My mom was very conflicted, but ultimately she had no choice. She tried to convince Saibon to go home with her own family. Chris paused, trying to fight back his emotions before continuing. Saibon got so angry with my mom that she pushed her down a flight of stairs. Chris's expression was dark, and his eyes seemed far away with a deep sadness and anger as he told the story. "Oh my God!" Olivia gasped. She had no idea, and her mind reeled from the new information. How Chris was able to stand being in the same city with Saibon, Olivia had no idea. If Saibon had hurt her mom, Olivia would have to get her revenge too. Chris took a breath before he spoke again. "When I visited my mom in the hospital, she made me promise to never take my anger out on Saibon. I promised to have nothing to do with her for the rest of my life." Olivia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You promised?" Olivia asked in awe of Chris's restraint. Her heart went out to him, imagining Chris as a young boy having to discuss such heavy things with his mother while she lay in her hospital bed. "I did," Chris nodded. "My mom was a really kind and forgiving person. She said Saibon was just a little kid who could not control her behavior. She didn't blame Saibon for pushing her down those stairs." Chris clenched his jaw at the memory. "She gave her way too much credit, but that's just how my mom was." "Wow," Olivia replied. She reflected on how much the selflessness of Chris's mom shined through in his story. "What happened after that?" "My mom's injuries from the fall down the stairs were not very serious," Chris explained, and his eyes suddenly flashed with murderous rage. "But someone took advantage of her being stuck in the hospital and slipped something into her IV. That's how she died." "Oh, Chris," Olivia said sadly and placed her hand over Chris's hand. Nothing she could say could express how sorry she was about what happened to his mom. Only one person could have done it, she thought darkly. "It was her," Chris said coldly. "I know it was her." Olivia nodded. "What happened to Saibon after that?" "The Harney family institutionalized her in the States after that," Chris explained. Olivia remembered Saibon telling her and her friends that she had gone to a Catholic school in Europe. Olivia realized that she could not believe a single word that came out of Saibon's mouth from now on. After just 2 years, Saibon escaped and was stronger and more terrible than ever. The assassins that were sent to kill her never came back alive. Even the ones that were sent into the institution as plants were all found poisoned to death. No one knows how she even managed to get her hands on poison while institutionalized. So poison is her preferred method, Olivia thought. By the time her family found out that she had escaped, it was already too late. She was unstoppable. Chris shook his head. "So the Harney family just gave up then?" Olivia frowned. "Pretty much," Chris sighed and looked at Olivia. "Saibon is a psychopath. Nobody can get rid of her. But something tells me she won't stay in New York City for too long. Still, you have to be careful." "Okay," Olivia nodded. "But something still isn't adding up. Saibon was very young when the poisoning happened. Where did she get the poison to kill those family members? Some adult must have given her the poison, right? But who? I've tried to figure that out for years, but I can't think of who would have had a motive. Only Saibon knows for sure." Chris shook his head bitterly. "And she clearly isn't telling anyone." "I see," Olivia nodded. Chris said. "Do you have anything else you want to know?" "Yeah, but about something else entirely," Olivia asked eagerly. She was about to change the subject, but she hoped it was something that would make Chris happy and distract him. "Do you still have any time tomorrow? I remembered you said something about it being our anniversary." "I did say that," Chris smiled. This was exactly the kind of thing he would rather think about than Saibon. "And I do still have time." Olivia smiled. "Great, then we'll do something." She picked up another bite of food with her fork off of her own plate. "You didn't get to try the vegetables before. I want you to have some." "Only if you already got enough." Chris sighed and accepted the morsel. Olivia kept Chris distracted, not wanting him to dwell on the sad time in his life when his mother passed. The time passed as they reached back and chatted, enjoying one another's company. They strolled around together for a while, and then Chris walked Olivia home. As soon as Chris saw Olivia safely enter her building, he got a call from an unknown number on his phone. "Hello?" he answered carefully. "Hello, Chris Jones," a sweet voice said over the phone. Chris's face turned serious and his eyes darkened. "Saibon?" "Chris, you really dug yourself a hole this time. How could you tell all those private things about me to someone else? I'm so disappointed in you," Saibon simpered. Across town at that moment, Saibon lay back in a huge round bathtub filled with lavender-scented bubbles. She stretched out her hand and played with the bubbles that floated around her in the hot water. Chris frowned. "You're spying on me?" He quickly turned around, turning in a circle and feeling suddenly very paranoid. "Now you're getting it," Saibon smiled. "I thought you would never notice the little mic I planted in your shirt pocket." Chris touched his pocket and felt a hard object, no bigger than the size of a fingernail. He did not need to take it out to know what kind of listening device it was. "Chris, you're really wasting your talent here. Why don't you, I don't know, come back with me?" Saibon smiled and added, "Things have changed between us, have they?" "Shut up," Chris said in a deadly voice. He took out the listening device from his pocket and crushed it under his foot. "You've crossed the line." "Really?" Saibon laughed, offended. "I'm the one who crossed the line?" "Chris, you didn't even try to deny that you told Olivia all of my personal business." "I have to let her know who she's really dealing with," Chris said matter-of-factly. "Then why don't you tell her in detail what happened when you were Kay?" Saibon asked in a low voice. "You remember, don't you? When you were Kay and you were working with the hunters? I was the one who looked up to you. You were so impressive you could kill anyone without even blinking." "Saibon," Chris interrupted, shouting through his gritted teeth. "I am not Kay anymore. Don't talk about those things ever again. Now listen to me carefully. Get out of New York and stay away from Olivia." "Gosh, what a temper you have. You're no fun anymore." Saibon sighed and shrugged, sinking lower into the bubbles. "But I will grant you one of your requests," she concealed. "And what's that?" Chris asked, unamused by Saibon's games. "I won't be staying in New York City for long. I told you I just came here to meet your future wife," Saibon said innocently. "Once I've had my fun, I will leave." Saibon waited for Chris to reply, but he said nothing, being extra cautious with his words. Saibon sighed, growing tired of this one-track conversation. "Listen, you might not believe me, but I want Olivia to be safe too. However, being here in the US costs so much money. And while I am lucky enough to have a benefactor, I have to do something in return for all their generosity. Return the favor, so to speak." "Who is your benefactor?" Chris asked, frowning suspiciously. "Ugh," Saibon yawned. "I'm tired and don't feel like talking anymore. Good night, Chris. Enjoy dreaming of me," she said sweetly with a menacing undertone. "Hang on. I asked you who is funding you." Chris frowned. "No matter how much you don't want to admit your past identity, you won't forget your promise, will you? No matter how much you don't want to admit your past identity, you won't forget your promise, will you?" Saibon said in a low, threatening voice. She then went right back to the light and flirty as if flipping a switch. "Well, like I said, I'm tired. Good night, Chrissy." She hung up the phone. "Saibon! Saibon!" Chris called out to the phone, but the call was over. His eyes widened in fear as he immediately rushed home. He was certain that whoever was sponsoring Saibon's trip to the US wanted to put a bounty on Olivia's head. He had no idea how much money was offered for the job, but if Saibon had accepted the mission, then there must be an electronic record with the bounty amount listed. He was determined to find out who it was that hired Saibon to go after Olivia. On the other side of town, Saibon hung up her phone and stepped out of the bathtub. Her skin was soft and smooth with soap suds still clinging to her. She hummed quietly to herself as she toweled off. Just then her phone rang. When she answered, Saibon frowned. "I thought it was Chris calling me back. I was really disappointed when I saw your number instead." A deep laugh came over the phone. "This is the first time I've heard someone sound disappointed to receive a phone call about getting paid." "Well," Saibon smiled slightly, "there are some things in this life that matter more than money." "Tell me, have you found the location of that thing Olivia has?" the deep voice asked. "Not yet," Saibon answered lazily. "But as long as it really is in Olivia's possession, I will find it soon enough. Of course, my only requirement is that I get to have fun on my own on the way." "Do as you wish," the person said. "But you must remember the 2 key points for this mission. First, find the thing. Second, Olivia must remain alive." "I know," Saibon sighed irritably. She did love the idea of getting to watch Chris Jones' face if he ever found out she had killed his beloved. But she knew she had to agree to the terms of her benefactor. "So is there anything else?" To needle the unidentified caller back a bit, she added his name. "Mystery Man?" "You are very bold, aren't you? Why do you insist on calling me that?" the deep voice asked, annoyed but with a hint of affection. "Don't you like it? Everyone calls you that, you know." Saibon pouted. She knew the others working for him, Mark DeLillo and Beatrix Cooper, who also referred to him as the Mysterious Man. "Don't tell me you would prefer that I call you by your actual name." "Stop," the Mysterious Man interrupted suddenly, all playfulness gone from his voice. Instead, he left her with a warning. "Do not call me by my name, ever." When Olivia returned home, she found Morgana and Michael playing video games again. "You're back," Morgana said as she sat cross-legged on the sofa with a spoon in her mouth and a half-eaten carton of ice cream on the coffee table in front of her. She concentrated on a gaming console in her hands. Michael sat next to Morgana watching the game console with interest. "Kick him! Kick!" Olivia stood at the door and raised her eyebrows slightly, watching the two of them. "Morgana and my dad have spent too much time together," she chuckled to herself. "Olivia, you're back," Victoria explained as she limped out of her bedroom. She still used the wall to support herself as she walked, but was becoming more used to getting around in her cast. "Have you eaten?" "I have," Olivia replied. "Mom, you should really be resting more, not offering to make food. It's okay for us to take care of ourselves, you know." "I've been resting all day long. Your dad even cooked dinner tonight. I just came out to stretch my legs for a bit." Victoria shrugged innocently. "That's more like it," Olivia nodded. "Dad, how was your day today?" "Me?" Michael smiled. "Pretty good. I saw the documents from the park company. It all looked very good. It's a little different from what we talked about earlier, but still good. I've already asked Anselpar to contact Miss Cartwright." "That sounds great. I actually had another idea that I want to talk to you about right now if you can," Olivia said. "Oh yeah? What idea?" Michael asked curiously. "Let's talk in the other room." Olivia gestured away. Michael nodded and got up to join Olivia. He was always happy to talk to his daughter about business. Olivia turned to Morgana. "Maybe you can teach my mom to play for a while. Then she won't have to be so bored when you're all away from home all day." "You got it," Morgana saluted Olivia. Morgana knew Victoria struggled with loneliness while they were all gone, especially now that she was taking time from work to recover. Morgana knew that having a distraction could help, and eagerly turned to start teaching her the game. Olivia and Michael smiled at how well Morgana and Victoria got along with each other. They then moved to Olivia's room to discuss Olivia's ideas. "Dad, I have 3 things to cover with you," Olivia started. "Okay." Michael waited patiently. "The first thing is, I want to buy majority shares in Confluence, she explained. What do you think? Michael paused for a moment, and then understanding dawned on his face. You know about the agreement between me and the Confluence shareholders, I take it. Yes, Olivia answered. I heard it the last time I visited Confluence. And that's why you changed the agreement and came up with a way to acquire the shares if necessary? Michael asked with an impressed smile on his face. That's right, Olivia nodded. You know the current market situation in the gaming industry better than me. If I buy majority shares, then you won't have to step down as CEO if you don't reach your goal of $300 million this quarter. Confluence was on the verge of bankruptcy because of how messy they were before you got there. With your help, they're doing better than ever. I'm not going to let them ruin it again. This is the best plan for everyone. Michael hesitated. I know you're doing me a huge favor. Dad, stop. Olivia held up her hand. You are the best CEO Confluence has ever had. And you're probably the best CEO for the company right now and going forward. We all need you to stay on. Losing you means the company tanks. I'm just making sure the right scenario happens. Michael had always wanted Olivia to be the successor of Confluence. Even though she was now the president of the park company, he still held on to the dream of his daughter taking over his legacy. I don't know, Olivia, he started to say. Dad, listen, Olivia pressed. You need to stay on. This isn't just for you or even just for me. There's a lot coming up. Gaming championships are in the middle of the summer. You can ask the games department to time it perfectly. The park company will do its best to coordinate with you. Michael beamed at Olivia. He reached out and patted Olivia's shoulder reassuringly. And leave the rest to Dad. Olivia smiled. There's more. The park company is bidding on land in Brooklyn. If everything goes the way it's expected to, I will also be able to bid as a private entity for a pretty central area with lots of development potential. I see, Michael nodded. I've thought about that too. If you need help with the funds, just talk to Ansel Parr, okay? Michael knew that even though Olivia was running the park company, she did not personally have as much money at her disposal. Olivia smiled gratefully at Michael. She knew he would always have her back. So what's the third thing you wanted to discuss? Michael chuckled. The third thing? Olivia looked at Michael with a serious expression. I want to know the truth about why Grandpa Johnson wanted to bring me to the Johnson mansion as a teenager and reintroduce me into the family. Can you tell me what his real reasoning was? Now that I'm older, I need to know. Michael did not expect Olivia's question. He remained stunned for a moment and shook his head slightly. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure about it myself. He sighed deeply before continuing. I always believed it has something to do with the secret that only the patriarchs and matriarchs of the 7 families and the 4 ancient families know. One of the oldest living heads of each family know this secret and can only pass it to the next leader when they are on their deathbed. I see. Olivia nodded. She immediately recalled Chris's words from before about a secret that only the heads of the family knew, and that it concerned Sayabon. I feel so close to understanding something about this, but it's just barely out of my reach, she thought, frustrated. Looking into her father's eyes, she knew he shared as much of the truth as he knew, and did not have any more information. However, Michael added as he thought for a moment, about the secret. He paused for a moment as he looked at Olivia with a complicated expression. I think your mother knows something about it, but she will not talk about it. Mom knows the secret? Olivia asked, surprised. I thought only the oldest head of each family knew the secret. That would be her father. Years ago, just before the Park family went bankrupt and had to leave the U.S., Michael explained with a guilty look. I didn't want the Park family to have such a disaster, but I wasn't entirely uninvolved. I know, Olivia nodded. She knew Michael had unwittingly signed the document himself that caused the Park family to go bankrupt, and it was that same document that destroyed Victoria's trust in Michael. She left him after that. Your grandfather is not an ordinary person. Michael went on. "He felt comfortable leaving your mother alone in the U.S. when the Park family had to leave. Not just because he thought that I would take care of her, but also because he gave your mother something to protect herself. I believe he told her about the secret so that if anyone threatened her, she had something to hold over them. No one would risk messing with her if they knew it might mean the secret was leaked." "So you think Grandpa Park told Mom the secret so she would be protected?" Olivia clarified. It made sense to her. Olivia pursed her lips and felt tempted to ask Victoria directly. I doubt Mom would just tell me about it if I asked, Olivia thought. She hasn't even hinted at knowing anything about this. She must be keeping it to herself for a good reason. "It's just my guess," Michael said. "Besides, it was many years ago." Olivia thought carefully, then asked Michael another question. "Dad, what do you think of the Kong family? I know most of the 7 families, but I don't know the Kongs very well." Olivia thought back to her time at Royal Perry's Manor, when all of the 7 families were represented except for the Kongs. "You know, I met Bella Bridges a while ago, and she gave me a pretty good impression of the Bridges family. I don't think they're any trouble," Olivia rambled. "And we already know about the Shooks and the Jarabaldis. That leaves the Kong family with the most question marks for me." Olivia recalled the image of Greg Kong in a white suit, showing up to the park company unannounced, and how he had not given her a positive impression. Not only did I get a bad vibe about Greg Kong, but he also seemed to have a good relationship with Bruno Johnson. That can't be a good thing, Olivia thought to herself. The Kong family. Michael thought for a moment. The Kong family is the head of the 7 families. That's why they're very private and very strict. They are responsible for keeping the peace between the families. Going back to the oldest Kong generation, they've always discouraged politics or interpersonal business. Obviously, most of the families have not heeded those rules, but if the Kongs had their way, they would keep everyone neutral. They're willing to do anything in their power to restore the peace among the families, no matter the cost. Understood, Olivia said. She had a sense of what her dad was talking about and thought it over carefully. I have a feeling the Kongs will not use peaceful methods to get what they want and restore this so-called peace. The next morning, Olivia and Morgana took off early in order to give Michael and Victoria some time alone. But I want to play games at home. Why can't we just stay home? Morgana complained. It was a sunny morning, and Morgana and Olivia sat together in traffic. I want to go back home. Morgana groaned at the cars in front of them. We can't. My mom and dad need some time alone, remember? We need to stay out of their space for the day. If you really don't want to go shopping while Chris and I celebrate our anniversary, you can go to the cafe and play games on your Switch for a while. I'll pick you up later, Olivia offered. All right, Morgana sighed. I definitely don't want to go home and be Michael and Victoria's third wheel. And I don't want to be your anniversary third wheel. I'll go to the cafe. Good. Going on our anniversary date with us was not one of the options. But I appreciate your choice to go to the cafe nonetheless. Olivia nodded. You'll have fun and it won't be so bad, I promise. Just then, Olivia's phone vibrated. It was Chris Jones calling. I wonder if he's stuck in the same traffic hell that we are, Morgana grumbled. Olivia held her phone to her ear and answered. Chris, where are you? I'm almost at the place. We're just stuck in traffic. I am so sorry, Chris said. He sounded very apologetic, even a bit upset. Olivia could sense Chris had bad news just from the tone of his voice, and she dreaded what he might say next. Please don't say anyone is hurt, or dead, or that there's something really important that just came up. Something really important just came up and I have to go deal with it. I can't get out of this one, unfortunately. Chris sighed. Olivia paused for a moment and pursed her lips. This seriously sucks. You're the one who has been hyping this anniversary for months, not me. I've been busy too, but I made the time. That is what Olivia wanted to say. Instead, she bit back her real feelings. She took a deep breath and said, "It's fine. Go and do what you have to do." "That's it? You're not upset? You don't even want to know what it is I have to do?" He hated when Olivia said things were fine, when they both knew they were definitely not fine. The last thing he wanted to do was disappoint her, but this time it was unavoidable. Her lack of follow-up questions felt even worse than if she had been upset with him. "Seriously, I am fine. It will be fine. You don't need to explain anything to me," Olivia insisted. "I know how that stuff goes sometimes, and if it were the other way around, I would want you to trust me instead of interrogating. You'll tell me what it is when you can. Besides, this frees me up for something else I need to do. It's better this way. We'll just do it another time." "I'll make it up to you," Chris promised. "See, I like when you owe me," Olivia chuckled. "Go on and do whatever this thing is that you can't get out of. I'll catch up with you later," Olivia said and hung up the phone. She shrugged at Morgana, trying to look unbothered. "Well, I just got stood up." "That pile of rat trash will die," Morgana cursed matter-of-factly with her fist in the air. "Before you murder him, it actually sounds like he had a good reason," Olivia sighed. "Whatever it is he's up to, it seems important. And anyway, I could tell he felt bad." "Oh," Morgana put her arm down and narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "Then want to go with me to the cafe to play games?" "That's okay." Olivia shook her head. "I'm going to go to the office. Since it's not a school day, I finally have time to catch up on some things." "Then I won't go to the cafe either. I will accompany you to the company. Get it?" Morgana linked her arm with Olivia's. "Oh, I get it all right." Olivia laughed and nodded as they walked arm in arm. At the airport, Chris still felt very guilty. It was the first time he had broken a promise to Olivia, and on their anniversary, no less. But it was small compared to the bigger matter he had to deal with. He needed to handle it personally, and there was no other way. Olivia would have to forgive him eventually. But even if she didn't, this was worth it. "Here you go, Chris." Sven hurried over and handed Chris his boarding pass. He noticed the conflicted look in Chris's eyes. "Do you want me to go with you?" Sven asked. "No." Chris shook his head. "I have to go talk to the hunters myself and find out who put the bounty on Olivia's head. I can't have you risk your life for this. I'm the one who has to protect Olivia. You going back there is like a chicken walking into a fox den, or whatever the saying is." Sven scratched his neck nervously. "I don't mind going with you, really. I could help." Chris checked that he had his passport for the last time and looked at Sven with a fond expression but shook his head. "It's too dangerous. We don't need to send 2 chickens into the fox den, right?" Sven laughed, but his eyes were still worried. He knew there was no convincing Chris to let him join. "Looks like Olivia's finally rubbing off on you. You actually said something kind of funny for once." "Don't expect it to happen again." Chris checked the time on his phone. "Okay, it's time to board." "All right." Sven nodded and patted Chris firmly on the arm. "Let me know if you need anything. You know I love a good last-minute trip." "Thanks, I will." Chris nodded. He really was grateful to have Sven in his life. Sven felt troubled letting Chris go alone. Chris was right about how dangerous the trip would be. Sven knew how dangerous it had been for him and Chris to leave the organization in the first place, and it would be even more dangerous for Chris to return alone this time. "Brent will arrive in New York in a few days. I asked him to contact you directly. And I'll see you when I get back," Chris said. It was their way of saying goodbye without having to say it. Chris turned and walked towards security, out of Sven's sight. Sven watched his friend go into certain danger alone, and his brow was furrowed with worry. They had been through plenty of tight spots before, but it was rare for Chris Jones to go at it alone. Sven felt powerless to protect his friend. The situation was one of the most dangerous they had ever encountered. It felt wrong not to be at Chris's side as backup. Sven watched and waited until Chris disappeared past security and into the terminal. Then Sven finally turned and left the airport. Nearby, a girl in a white dress looked out at the large floor-to-ceiling windows at the white fluffy clouds in the clear sky. She watched a plane that had just taken off climb higher and higher in the air. She smirked slightly as she held her phone to her ear. Kay has just boarded the plane back to headquarters. I've done my part to serve him up to the hunters on a platter. But whether or not you can close the deal depends on you. Thank you, Saibon, a voice said back through the phone. Of course, Saibon smiled. I told you I could get it done. Beyond doing what the hunters wanted, getting Chris out of New York City was convenient for Saibon as well, even though she didn't say so out loud. He was only in her way when it came to Olivia. Saibon knew that if Chris became an obstacle, she would have to get rid of that obstacle. But he was her Chris Jones, and she could not bear to part with him. It was better to send him far away. On the other side of town, Olivia and Morgana enjoyed the same rare good weather and clear blue sky as they headed to the park company headquarters. Traffic was very congested on the way there, and they were tired of waiting among all the cars. I hate traffic, Morgana moaned as she looked out the window at the packed road ahead of them. We really should be allowed to burn tourists to death. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not you're joking. Olivia shook her head amused. She looked out her own window and noticed an airplane gliding across the blue sky. Olivia frowned slightly. Morgana, I have a bad feeling about something. Me too. Morgana narrowed her eyes slightly and sat in silence for a moment before she said, But I might just be hungry again. Olivia laughed and turned her gaze ahead down the street. Her thoughts moved much faster than the car they were in. I know Chris is busy, but something just doesn't feel right. Like something bad is going to happen. What if Chris is in danger? The next day at school, Adam Reed had a special announcement to make. Our class will be hosting an exchange student for the last few months of school. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Adam said, gesturing to the sweet-looking girl in the front of the class. The girl turned to the class with a genuine smile. Hello, everyone. My name is Saibon Harney. I will be studying at Marshall as an exchange student. Any and all pointers on how to best succeed at the Marshall School are greatly appreciated, she said in her ever-so-slight British accent. This is my first time coming to New York City after living abroad my whole life. If I make any mistakes with the etiquette around here, I hope you can be patient with me. The students nodded agreeably. They were all immediately charmed by Saibon's practiced, pleasant, self-deprecating demeanor. Olivia subtly exchanged a pointed glance with Millie. They knew better. Even though the school year is almost over, the trouble still has no end in sight, Olivia thought and sighed. Saibon locked her eyes on Olivia and somehow managed to smile even more sweetly. Would you mind answering a few questions from the class? Adam Reed asked. Not at all. Ask away, Saibon said with that same big smile. The students immediately began to rattle off their questions. Saibon, is that an English accent you have? Are you from London originally? One girl asked. I have a friend who grew up abroad. His accent is a mess, another student in the back shouted out. Saibon, what do you like about New York so far? Is there anything you want to see while you're here? The students excitedly asked question after question. They were curious about Saibon Harney. After class, the students surrounded her eager to get to know even more about the cherub-faced exchange student. Eventually, the conversation turned to discussing the upcoming tests. Hey, Olivia, Millie, Lena, how was your weekend? One student greeted them. Mine was awful. Millie made us study all weekend. Lena groaned. I don't think it was possible to be this tired of looking at textbooks, but here we are. The student nodded. Me too. I studied all weekend and I'm exhausted. With the exams coming up so soon, there's really no time for taking breaks, another girl chimed in. Only Millie doesn't need to study. She's so smart. She can ace it without even trying. The other girl playfully poked Millie in the shoulder. Saibon heard this information and perked up. Millie gets good grades? She interrupted. "Oh yeah, Millie is the most gifted student in class, probably in the whole school," the girl said as she looked at Millie with admiration. "I see," Saibon said in a sweet voice as she sized Millie up. "How amazing." "Don't listen to them and their nonsense," Millie waved her hand dismissively. "I just have a good memory." "You're very modest, aren't you?" Saibon teased. Olivia eyed Saibon and then glanced at Millie. "Looks like Saibon is already feeling competitive with Millie," Olivia observed. "She really can't stand just to leave people alone or let anyone be better than her." "Speaking of tests, there will be a quiz to get us ready for the bigger test next week," Lena said. "Adam Reed said that this morning in case anybody forgot. There's so many tests to keep track of right now. It's easy for them all to blur together." The students voiced their displeasure. "Yeah, Adam Reed is being so cruel with the tests. Adding a quiz on top of the test? Didn't we already have enough to worry about?" They all dreaded the upcoming exams. "I'm looking forward to it, actually," Saibon shrugged. "I've never taken a test in the US before. I'm curious to see if it's easier or harder." "Then keep looking forward to it. You'll find out soon enough," Morgana warned. She remembered being naive enough to look forward to a test, but she had learned her lesson quickly. Before going to the martial school, Morgana only had experience with getting educated by her Venom witchcraft master. Showing up for written tests at school with a group of students was an entirely different experience for her, and the novelty of it quickly passed. "Millie, someone is looking for you," a classmate suddenly called out from near the door. "Oh," Millie said and walked to the door to investigate. "Who is looking for me?" "I don't know," the classmate pointed outside. "I think he's a freshman." Millie peeked out and saw a boy who was about 5 feet tall with a very slight build. His hair was combed back in an unusual, old-timey way, and he looked nervous. He stood up very straight with his shoulders high and tight, and his arms hung stiffly at his sides. "Do you need something?" Millie asked the boy standing at the door. The boy looked up, seemingly trying to muster the courage to speak to Millie. "Millie Brown," he said finally. I am Dexter Hollingsworth. I'm a freshman, and I've always admired you so." He spoke overly formally, like he was sent from the past. "I went to the same elementary school as you. When you were in the 5th grade, I was in the 2nd grade. You gave a speech that I still remember to this day. I've treasured it in my heart up to this very moment and never forgot your beautiful face." Millie blinked at the odd young boy with the trembling voice in front of her. She was completely stunned and did not know what to say. She had rejected little crushes before, but this was the first time someone had rushed up to her and declared their feelings so suddenly and publicly. Off of the awkward silence, Dexter opened his mouth to continue speaking. "It's because of you that I study so hard. Your intellect and dedication to your studies are truly an inspiration. I worked hard so I could get into the martial school just like you. I am honored to follow in your footsteps, and even just to walk the halls that have been graced by your presence." Dexter clenched his fists as if he summoned every ounce of his courage and strength to shout his feelings. "I will always admire you. I liken my affection to the famous love song. Every breath you take, every move you make." Something else in there. "Every step you take, I'll be watching you. Even after this year, I will make sure to get in whichever college you decide to go to." That part isn't a lyric in the song, but it is a promise I make to you now. Millie stared at the boy for a moment. It was a fine line between admirer and stalker, and Millie could not tell which of these Dexter Hollingsworth would turn out to be. "Oh, wow," was all Millie could say. "That is a song, yes." Dexter Hollingsworth finally dared to look directly into Millie's eyes, but he quickly lowered his gaze. This is all I want to say, Millie. Good luck with your exams," he stammered. He quickly turned around and hurried out. He bumped into someone and nearly fell over, but kept walking. Millie covered her mouth to hide a short, hysterical giggle. She shook her head in disbelief and turned back to head into the classroom. Camilla Pell leaned in the doorway, grinning at the hilarious display she had just witnessed. Cameron stood nearby, also with an amused expression on his face. Millie blushed. Even though it was ridiculous, she felt like she had been caught cheating or something. "Well, that was unexpected." Camilla smirked, greatly amused. She playfully elbowed her brother in the ribs. "Did you see that whole thing?" Millie cringed. "Oh, yeah." Camilla laughed. Cameron looked at Millie with a subtle smile. They had just seen each other 2 days ago, but it felt like a lifetime to him. He could not stop thinking about her the entire time. It was funny. His feelings were not so different from that silly little boy who just ran off. He felt lucky that he had the privilege of knowing Millie, instead of just being some distant admirer. "Let's change the subject," Millie begged. "Why are you guys getting here so late? The second period is about to start." "We had to change Cameron's bandages," Camilla explained. "Adam Reed knew that we were at the hospital this morning." "Oh." Millie nodded and glanced at Cameron's arm, which was wrapped in fresh bandages. "How is your shoulder?" Cameron shrugged to indicate it was fine. The bell rang for class to start and they took their seats. The math teacher started class and had them open their textbooks. Millie listened carefully when suddenly a piece of paper slid toward her. She tried to suppress her smile as she carefully unfolded it. "Congratulations on your new fan," the note said with a drawn smiley face. Millie's cheeks burned. She knew Cameron was teasing her about Dexter Hollingsworth. Millie scribbled down a response and handed the note back. Cameron took the note and opened it with one hand. "Am I sensing some jealousy?" "Don't worry. Maybe you can drum up a fan base of your own someday. It's never too late," it said. Cameron smiled to himself and Millie chuckled quietly. "Millie?" The teacher suddenly called her name. "Yes?" Millie looked up at the math teacher. "Can you expand these formulas for us? These are going to be important to know in college, so everyone should master them now," the teacher instructed. "Sure." Millie nodded and walked up to the whiteboard while the class prepared to copy it into their notebooks. Cameron watched Millie work and smiled to himself. He really liked her more and more every time he saw her. Saibon tapped her notebook impatiently and peered at Millie and Cameron. She turned her head to her seat partner and asked in a low voice, "Millie and Cameron, are they together?" "Yeah," the girl whispered back. "The whole school knows." "Really?" Saibon raised her eyebrows as she stared at them. "We have a lot of couples in our class," the girl whispered. She nodded at Lena and Francis. "They're also together." "I see. Interesting." "What?" the girl asked curiously from the expression on Saibon's face. "Nothing. I just like to know about all the relationships so I don't accidentally step on any toes." Saibon smiled. She reached into her bag, pulled out a cute little pen, and handed it to the girl. "Here's a little something for you." "Huh? What's this for?" the girl asked, stunned to receive a gift. "My mom sent me to school with a bunch of them to help make friends. I just appreciate you chatting with me." Saibon smiled at the girl. "That's nice," the girl said. "I don't have anything to give you. I didn't know we'd have a new classmate," she explained. "Oh, don't worry about it, my treat," Saibon said graciously. "I appreciate you showing me the ropes." "Sure thing. I'm Pooja, by the way, Pooja Patel." The girl introduced herself. "Nice to meet you, Pooja. I'm so glad to have a new friend like you." Saibon smiled and turned back to the front of the classroom, while Pooja refocused on writing in her notebook. As Saibon stared ahead, an evil smile crept over her face. She could already tell that taking advantage of the students in this school would be all too easy. Whether we'd like it or not, it's happening, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Lena worried to Olivia and Millie as they walked through the Marshall halls toward the cafeteria. "College acceptance letters are being sent out soon. Where do you guys hope you'll get in?" Olivia looked casual. With everything happening lately, college was one of the last things on her mind. "NYU." Lena nodded, still frantic. "Millie, what about you?" Millie spoke like she'd had this plan figured out for years. I also am thinking about NYU. They have a program where you can create your own major, and I've been working out the details for that. Lena exhaled in relief. If you're both going to NYU, that's easy. I just have to get into NYU. Olivia frowned. Did you even apply? I thought you wanted to take a gap year. Lena shrugged. Yeah, I can just apply next year. If I study software engineering, it will only take me 2 years to graduate anyway. Olivia grimaced. Well, maybe hold off on NYU. Lena's panic returned. What? No! We had it all figured out. Why? Millie calmly explained. Olivia won't be at NYU for long. She said she'd spend about a year there and then transfer to London. She turned to Olivia. Oh, remember to say hi to Wendy there. The two of you could settle down in London and then maybe I'll study abroad there and Lena can do an online program. Oh, okay. Lena nodded, taking this in. I'm getting whiplash from the panic and not panic, you guys. But there's one thing I don't understand. If you do want to go to school in London, why don't you go directly to London? Why would you want to go to NYU first? Olivia briefly thought about whether she should reveal the true reasoning behind the decision to her friends, but decided against it. Because I can't let go of the business in New York City for a while, she lied. It will give me time to transition. Chris had asked her to give him 1 year in New York before she left, so she agreed. Partially because it would also give her enough time to finish up her plans for revenge on the people still living in New York City. Lena clasped her hands together. All right, it's settled. I'll wait to apply anywhere. That's right, Francis agreed as he appeared, putting his hands on Lena's shoulders. You can come travel all over the world with me instead. Lena smiled. That does sound really amazing. Olivia cleared her throat with a stern look at Francis. You want to take Lena away from us? You think you can compete? She teased. I didn't even think of it that way. Lena's eyes widened. Sorry, Francis. There's no getting between me and my girls. Francis smiled, admitting defeat. No, you're right. I wouldn't dare. Oh, I'm just kidding. Olivia smiled. Go travel with Lena. Just make sure the two of you end up in London at the same time as Millie and I. In Olivia's former life, Francis had followed Pamela Cox around like a puppy. He even gave up on his own college career to help her. Olivia was glad to see him have such big plans in this life that was for himself, even if he was hoping for Lena to accompany him. Francis nodded with a shy smile at Lena. The days he spent with Olivia and her friends, not to mention his relationship with Lena, were the best days of his entire life up until that point. He did not want their time together to come to an end when they graduated. He would try his best to keep in touch and keep the group together no matter what, even if he spent some time romping around the world in a backpack. Millie brightened and tapped her fingers together excitedly. Oh my gosh, that would be so cool. Let's all try to make sure we can live in London together for a year. Lena spoke hesitantly to Millie. I'm going to work so hard to make sure we do. And in light of that, will you give me back my handheld game console? It's really important to my mental health to have a combination of work and play, right? Olivia laughed softly, wishing she could take this moment in time and put it in a mental photo album. Seeing her friends chatting and laughing about their futures warmed her like a crackling fireplace. At that moment, a girl's voice sounded from behind them with a flirty tone. Hi, Francis. Francis turned around to see who was addressing him, when he saw that it was Georgina Crawford standing just a few feet away. His expression changed to a look of disgust. He took a couple of steps toward her. It's you. Georgina stood with a demure smile on her face, still gunning for Francis romantically, acting as though she had no clue he might be unhappy with her. Francis, my mother wanted to tell me that she and I are having dinner at your apartment tonight. I hope that will be okay with you. Francis was confused. Why does your mom want you to tell me? Georgina's face fell. Well, because she wanted me to ask you if we can go from school together. Francis's back stiffened. You want to come home with me after school?" Lena was eavesdropping while trying not to make it too obvious. When she heard the note of surprise in Frances's voice, she was even more certain that Georgina Crawford was up to her usual tricks. She really was endlessly annoying. "What's wrong?" Georgina looked uncomfortable, clearly wishing that he would have reacted differently. "Is it inconvenient or something? I'm really sorry to tell you this so suddenly out of the blue. I guess it's sort of presumptuous. But my mom only told me about it this morning, so I didn't know if you would have known too or something." Olivia turned and chimed in from where she stood. "Isn't it such a funny coincidence that Lena is going to Frances's house for dinner tonight too?" "Huh?" Lena was puzzled. She didn't remember anything about having plans to go to Frances's house for dinner. Olivia pinched the back of Lena's arm. "Ow!" Lena immediately drew her arm back in pain, not playing it cool at all. Only once Olivia raised her eyebrows at Lena did she realize what she was driving at. Lena composed her expression and looked back at Georgina. Yes, that's right. I'm also going to Frances's house for dinner tonight." "That's so great!" Georgina pretended to be happy, but she was not a very good actress. "We can head over together, Lena. I have so much to catch up with you about." Olivia realized that Lena was in over her head and thought quickly, "Amazing! You can tell all of us too, because coincidentally, Morgana, Millie, and I are also going over to Frances's tonight." "Is that right?" Georgina asked unhappily. You guys are also going over to his house today? It's funny Cornelia didn't mention that to my mom." "Oh no, really? Did I make a mistake?" Olivia took out her phone and dialed Frances's mother. "Hi, Auntie Cornelia. I was just calling to make sure it's all right with you if Lena, Morgana, Millie, and I come over for dinner tonight. We all can't stop talking about how amazing your food was last time." Olivia smiled to herself as she listened to Cornelia's response. "All right, yes, perfect. We'll head over with Frances after school. Have a good rest of your day at work, thank you." After hanging up the phone, Olivia smiled and looked directly at Georgina, whose expression had already grown dark. "You heard all of that, right?" Georgina narrowed her eyes and nodded back. Olivia continued, "Unfortunately, my car can only fit 5 people, including the driver. Shoot, I guess we're full up." Georgina smiled an angry smile. "That is really unfortunate, especially since you're already 6, including the driver." Georgina smiled smugly, then lit up as if just arriving upon an amazing idea. "Frances, why don't you and I take a cab?" Millie interrupted. "Oh no, I just remembered I can't actually make it tonight after all. I have other plans." Millie winked at Lena. "You know what, Georgina?" Olivia suggested. "I think Phil Eggers lives close to Frances and he always takes a taxi home after school. You should see if you can ride with him." Georgina's expression could not be any uglier. At this point, she wasn't trying to hide it on her face any longer, although her voice remained cheerful. No need. See you all later." She rolled her eyes at Olivia. She laughed a strained, high-pitched laugh and left them. Lena turned to Millie. "You don't really have any plans tonight, do you? What will you do tonight without us?" Just then, the Pell twins walked by. Olivia quickly flagged them over. "Cameron! Camilla!" They walked over and Olivia greeted them. "What are you two doing tonight?" Camilla looked around at everybody curiously. "Nothing much," Olivia continued. "What if you take Millie with you for dinner tonight? Morgana and I are going with Lena to Frances's house." Camilla beamed. She was a big fan of Millie and Cameron's relationship. "Sure." She turned to Millie. "Sister-in-law, come hang with us after school." Millie nodded. "Sounds good." Olivia gave Cameron a knowing look. "Just be careful. You know how dangerous the city can be these days." Although Olivia did not get into specifics, Cameron knew exactly what she was referring to. He and Camilla had been tracking anyone who might be after Millie since word got out that she may be the missing Crawford. Cameron gave Olivia a nod. He would protect Millie at all costs. He knew they were all in more danger than they'd ever been before. The group made their way into the cafeteria when Camilla suddenly saw something that made her gasp. Oh, I just remembered. I have some gossip for all of you. Camilla proudly told the rest of the group as Olivia, Lena, Millie, Cameron, and Francis all got into the long line for food. Everyone exchanged a look. Millie raised an eyebrow. The last time you thought you had gossip, you told us that someone in your neighborhood was murdered. And is that not good gossip? Camilla turned to each of them, confused. I thought you'd all want to know. Francis looked away, troubled. It was pretty sad, and a little disturbing how excited you were by it. Fine. Off their cynical looks, she rolled her eyes and continued. Well, this time, the gossip is not murder. Not even close. Today in class, I sat next to Sam Feinstein. She subtly gestured to where Sam and Zach Colston were holding a table for the group to join them. I saw him doodling Sayaban Harney's name in his notebook. I think he has a crush on her. Olivia grimaced, looking at Sam. This is not a good choice for him. Do you think we should interfere? Millie worried as the group all watched Sam Feinstein. On the other side of the cafeteria, Sayaban sat by the window with no food before her and only a cup of hot coffee in her hands. She wore a pair of headphones and appeared to listen to music. But if anyone could really hear what was being transmitted to Sayaban, they would be shocked. As soon as Sayaban heard Olivia's remark about her not being a good choice for Sam, the corner of her mouth raised slightly. She knew it was a good idea to bug Olivia with a mic. It was already paying off for her. Sayaban? Pooja Patel asked. She approached her delicately, thinking that Sayaban must be sad and lonely to be sitting by herself. Sayaban took the headphones off and smiled at Pooja. Did you eat already? Pooja pulled out a chair and sat next to Sayaban. No. Sayaban smiled lightly. I'm not eating today. Oh. Pooja looked at her, concerned. If you don't like the cafeteria food, let me know. I always have some chocolate with me. Thank you, that's so nice of you. I'm okay for now, but I'll let you know. Sayaban smiled and twisted the cord of her headphones around her finger. What are you listening to? Pooja asked. Sayaban tried to look humble. Just Bible verses. Pooja raised her eyebrows, surprised. Oh, that's nice. Sayaban seemed to think of something. Hey, I wanted to ask, do you know a kid named Sam Feinstein? My mother is friends with someone who knows his mother, and she told me to try to find him, but I'm shy. Oh yeah, everyone knows Sam. He's super involved in a ton of clubs and activities at Marshall. Pooja scanned the cafeteria until her eyes landed on Sam, sitting at the table that Olivia and her friends were just now taking their seats at. He's right over there, she pointed, sitting between Zach Colston and Camilla Pell. I told you about Cameron and Millie already. Camilla is Cameron's twin sister. Sayaban prodded for more. Everyone in this class seems like they're really tight-knit. Pooja didn't understand what Sayaban was trying to insinuate. Yeah, I guess they are. They hang out a lot at school, and a few of them started a video game business together. I don't know how they do it. Pooja took out a workbook. I hope you don't mind if I do a little studying. There's this huge practice exam coming up. Sayaban smiled lightly. Oh, don't worry. I won't bother you. Pooja smiled back and dove into her workbook. Sayaban looked out the window. The rain was pouring outside as if it were tirelessly washing away the sin from this world. She thought about how God pitied all these people, even if the world was dirty, absolutely filthy. He had never given up on them. Instead, he just gave them more rain. Sayaban's fingertips touched the center of her chest, gently tracing the edge of her cross pendant that rested under her shirt. She felt comfortable thinking about how he would just keep giving them more rain. After lunch, Olivia and her friends returned to the classroom. Morgana pouted. Wow, this rain is really annoying. Millie frowned at Cameron's bandaged shoulder. How is that doing? Did it get wet at all on your way to school this morning? Cameron shook his head and gently brushed aside Millie's hair. He hugged her close. Morgana stuck out her tongue. Ugh, you guys are making me sick, so gross. Millie laughed shyly. The rest of the school day passed quickly. As soon as the final bell rang, the students eagerly began to pack up their supplies. Olivia picked up her backpack. It's over. We did it. Everyone mumbled their goodbyes to each other, their bags heavy and their heads numb. They all trudged out of the school's front gate. Olivia had called for a car to Francis's house in advance, so it was already waiting at the school gate by the time they exited. Olivia, Morgana, Lena, and Francis climbed in and shut the door behind them. Just then, Olivia spotted Georgina walking out of the school gate through the back window of the car. Beside her was Jake Nevin. Olivia scoffed when she saw the pair. She knew that Georgina made good decisions sometimes, and aligning with Jake seemed to be one of those good decisions, even though he tended to be an ignorant mess much of the time. Olivia tapped Lena and Morgana and gestured for them to take a look. They could see that Georgina was whispering something to Jake, and he had an indignant expression on. It seemed like he was in the mood to fight anyone around him on Georgina's behalf. Morgana leaned over to Olivia. "Say hello." She pressed the button to lower the window between Olivia and the pair strutting toward them outside. "I think that's not a good idea. It's too flashy. We don't need to embarrass her any further by drawing attention to our strained relationship." Olivia glanced at Georgina. "Besides, didn't you see how pitiful Georgina was acting earlier? Let's just leave it alone for now." "You're right." Morgana nodded, disappointed. She was hoping for some kind of altercation. Things were getting a little too boring for her liking. "I'll close it." "Good," Olivia replied. She glanced over as the window was going up and accidentally made direct eye contact with Georgina and Jake. From where she was walking, Georgina gasped, "Jake, look how arrogant she is. I can't believe her." Georgina was so angry that her stomach hurt as she processed what she saw. She deliberately opened the window to let us see her, then closed it right in our faces. She was showing off. She just closed the window once she was sure we were looking. Why is she so tacky? What a low-class wrench. Jake Nevin also frowned and shook his head. "That is really despicable. Olivia Johnson is too much." Georgina spun toward him with grief in her eyes. "I'm so angry. Jake, each and every one of them bullied me. It's so unfair. I don't know what to do." Jake rubbed her arm, trying to be comforting. "It's fine. Don't let her get to you. Just get even. I'll get the driver to take you, and when you reach the Handler family's house, your mom and Cornelia Handler definitely won't let you be bullied." Georgina's face fell, confused. "What about you, Jake? Aren't you coming with me? I thought you would." "No." Jake shook his head with regret. "I have something to do tonight." "Oh, Jake." Georgina smiled at him. "You're such an important person. Always doing such big things. You're obviously so busy, but you still let me take your car? I'm really touched." "Silly girl, of course I would. You're my cousin." Jake reached out his hand to touch the tip of Georgina's nose as he smiled back at her. He liked that she looked up to him and admired him so much. He felt annoyed that more people did not see him that way. But at least she saw the truth. Olivia and the others in her car arrived at the Handler family home and noticed a black private car parked outside the courtyard. They did not need to guess to know that it was a car belonging to Jessica Nevin, Georgina Crawford's mother. "Let's go," Francis said to Olivia, Lena, and Morgana as she gestured for them to get into the house. As soon as they entered, they heard laughter coming from the living room. Jessica Nevin was speaking with a smile. "I really can't stop thinking about the last few days. I've had such a wonderful time." "I feel exactly the same way," Francis's mom, Cornelia Handler, replied with a light laugh. "Time passes so quickly. Our children are taller than us now. How nutty is that?" "That's right." Jessica's fingertips lightly caressed the rim of her cup. "I don't have much that I hope for in this lifetime. I just really wish for Georgina to live a happy and stable life. That's it." Jessica sighed, a far-off look appearing in her eyes. Cornelia saw the change in mood come over her friend and put a consoling hand on her arm. Don't think about those unhappy things anymore. It's all in the past. You can hope for more now. Jessica smiled gratefully. The nightmare she endured 18 years ago at the hands of a stranger, the very night when her daughter Georgina was conceived, was known to very few people. But Cornelia Handler happened to be one of them.